Welcome everyone, and thank you for being here today. I'm excited to introduce our presentation titled The Impact of the Broken Formula and How to Fix It. On this first slide, we're setting the stage by highlighting a common challenge faced by the three largest cities, specifically, Connecticut's disinvestment in education. Over the course of this presentation, we'll explore how this issue affects our communities and discuss potential solutions. Let's get started. Welcome to Slide 2, where we'll be providing an introduction and overview of our presentation. Here, I want to set the stage by highlighting the key points we'll be covering today. We'll start with the main concepts that underpin our topic, making sure we understand the foundational ideas. Then, I'll connect these points to the overall theme of our presentation, showing how everything fits together. This overview is designed to give you a clear roadmap of what to expect, so you can follow along more easily and see the bigger picture. Ultimately, this slide helps us establish a common understanding and prepares us for the deeper dive into each area that's coming up next. Let's take a closer look at the three largest districts and the common challenges they face, which are actually shared by most urban and rural districts across the state. First, there's the issue of state funding shortfalls. Many districts are struggling financially because of structural deficits, and unfortunately, the support they receive from the state isn't enough to bridge that gap. This creates a significant challenge for providing quality education. Next, we have complex student needs. Urban and rural districts often serve students who require more specialized services, like additional support for students with special needs and English learners. These needs naturally increase the costs for services and transportation, making it even harder to operate within limited budgets. Another critical point is our heavy reliance on property taxes to fund schools. Connecticut's school funding mainly comes from federal, state, and local aid, but this system can be highly inequitable. A school's funding often depends on local property wealth and zip code, which means that wealthier areas can afford better resources, while poorer districts struggle. The Education Cost Sharing Program, or ECS, was created to address this disparity, but it's not enough. Speaking of which, the current ECS formula is broken. It's based on an outdated model that hasn't been fully funded and hasn't kept up with inflation. As a result, our most distressed districts, especially urban and rural ones, continue to face funding shortfalls that hinder their ability to serve students effectively. And I want to emphasize this point. Education is a civil right. Ensuring equitable funding is essential for justice and fairness. Advocacy plays a vital role here because the funding issues in Connecticut have historically deepened inequalities rooted in racism and classism. These systemic issues have persisted since the state's founding. Finally, it's important to recognize that Connecticut's flawed funding formula has been shortchanging our poorest districts for decades. Addressing this isn't just about budgets. It's about fairness, opportunity, and ultimately, justice for all students. Let's take a closer look at the issues surrounding the state funding formula. This is a critical part of understanding how resources are allocated and where the challenges lie. One of the main points to consider is that the current formula may not adequately reflect the actual needs of schools and districts. It often relies on outdated or oversimplified metrics, which can lead to inequities. For example, some schools might be underfunded despite facing greater challenges, simply because the formula doesn't capture those complexities. Another issue is the lack of flexibility within the formula itself, making it difficult to address unique local needs or respond to changing circumstances. Overall, these issues highlight the importance of revisiting and reforming the funding formula to ensure a fairer and more effective distribution of resources. This connects directly to our broader theme of equity and accountability in education funding. Let's take a closer look at some limitations of the current funding formula. First, it tends to underweight key factors such as concentrated poverty, English language learner populations, and it currently doesn't include a specific weight for special education. This means that urban and rural districts often don't receive adequate funding to meet their students' needs. Next, consider rising costs. Mandated services, salary increases, and inflation all drive up expenses every year. Yet, the foundation amount has remained stagnant at $11,525 since 2013. This disconnect makes it increasingly difficult for districts to keep up with the actual costs of providing quality education. Another issue is our heavy reliance on property taxes. While this might seem straightforward, it actually disadvantages cities with lower tax bases, creating systemic funding inequities. This situation disproportionately impacts Black and Brown communities, deepening existing disparities. So, what can we do about it? Advocating for a fix means pushing for an increase in the foundation amount and for higher weights for high-need students. These changes are essential to ensure all districts can fairly support their students' needs and close funding gaps. Finally, it's clear that the current formula has significant challenges. Addressing these issues is key to creating a more equitable and sustainable funding system for our schools. Let's take a closer look at the district snapshots. Here, we're focusing on key data that give us a clearer picture of how each district is performing and evolving. These snapshots highlight important trends and challenges, helping us identify areas of strength and opportunities for growth. By examining these details, we can better understand the diverse needs across districts and tailor our strategies accordingly. This is a crucial part of our overall theme, using data-driven insights to inform our decisions and improve outcomes everywhere. Remember, each district's story contributes to the bigger picture of our collective progress. Now, let's talk about the budget deficit challenge Hartford Public Schools are facing. For the 2026-2027 school year, we're looking at an additional $30 million shortfall. This increase is primarily driven by rising expenses across the board, and a key issue is that it's tough to raise property taxes because much of the property is tax-exempt, and the pilot funding from the state remains quite limited. Next, we need to understand that fixed costs are increasing significantly. Salaries, especially for staff and teachers, along with expenses for special education and transportation, are major factors driving up our costs. These are areas where expenses tend to grow steadily, and they're putting additional pressure on our budget. So, what does this mean for the district? More cuts are likely on the horizon. To manage the deficit, we may need to consider reducing staff further, cutting additional programs, and advocating for reforms in how we receive funding. It's a tough balancing act, but it's necessary to maintain the stability of our schools. That's where legislative advocacy comes into play. Hartford is actively seeking increased state funding and reforms to the education cost sharing formula. The goal is to secure more resources and prevent further reductions that could impact the quality of education our students deserve. Overall, these financial challenges highlight the importance of strategic planning and advocacy to ensure Hartford Public Schools can continue to serve our students effectively, even in tough economic times. Today, I want to talk about the budget deficit and the support we've received to address it. The district was facing a significant challenge, a $23.2 million deficit. To help close this gap, we received $8.5 million in support from the city and the state. However, looking ahead to the 2026-2027 school year, if no changes are made to the state budget, New Haven could face a potential deficit that could be even more severe. To manage these financial pressures, we've implemented some strategic cuts. For example, closing a magnet school and eliminating around 70 positions helped us reduce expenses and keep the district afloat. But the reality is, ongoing financial challenges remain. Costs for salaries, healthcare, and especially special education are increasing, which continues to strain our resources. And unfortunately, in the next budget cycle, we're expecting no increase in funding from the state, meaning a $0 increase, which will likely force us to make more cuts. This situation highlights the urgent need for advocacy for funding reform. Leaders like Mayor Alicker and Superintendent Dr. Negron are advocating for sustainable funding and reforms to the state funding formula. Their leadership exemplifies how we need to speak truth to power to ensure that our schools are adequately funded and capable of providing quality education. In summary, these financial challenges are complex, but by working together and advocating for fair funding, we can find solutions that support our students and our community. Bridgeport Public Schools has a rich history of serving our community, and today I want to highlight some of the key points that make it stand out. First, our district is committed to providing quality education to all students, ensuring they have the tools they need to succeed. We focus on creating an inclusive environment where every child feels valued and supported. Furthermore, Bridgeport Public Schools emphasizes innovation and continuous improvement in teaching methods and curriculum. This approach helps us meet the diverse needs of our students and prepare them for a rapidly changing world. Lastly, our district's partnership with families and the community is vital. Together, we work towards a common goal, opening doors of opportunity and fostering a love for learning that lasts a lifetime. All these elements tie back to our broader mission of empowering students to reach their full potential and contribute positively to society. As we look ahead to the 2024-2025 school year, it's important to understand that the pandemic funding we previously relied on is coming to an end. This means the city of Bridgeport has had to make some significant budget adjustments, totaling over $50 million in reduced expenditures. These cuts have impacted a wide range of areas within our school system. For example, we've had to eliminate more than 18 assistant principal positions, which directly affects school leadership and student support. Sadly, there are no librarians remaining, which impacts our students' access to critical literacy resources. Support staff at the central office level, including deputy superintendents and various directors, have also faced reductions, along with cuts to arts programs, facilities maintenance, and IT services. Additionally, some contracts have not been renewed, and we are facing tough decisions about our graduation venue options. While some cuts were unavoidable, there have been measures to temporarily avoid certain impacts. For instance, some proposed changes like increasing walking distances for students, eliminating kindergarten paraprofessionals, or holding convocations in the amphitheater have been put on hold for now. However, these decisions highlight the ongoing challenge of balancing budget constraints while trying to maintain the quality of education and support our students' need. These reductions are a reflection of the broader financial pressures we are facing, and it's important to keep these in mind as we continue to adapt and plan for the future. So let's talk about some of the challenges we're facing with our projections and guidance on the grant. Due to overly optimistic estimates of savings and a lack of clear guidance on the SEED grant, we're now looking at an additional projected deficit of around $9.3 million. That's a significant figure and highlights the risks of relying on overly positive assumptions. We do have a plan to address this, which involves using the remaining balance of our ISF fund, about $7 million, and asking the state for permission to use part of the $5 million that was recently allocated for Bridgeport through the bond bill. The idea is to prevent further cuts for this school year. But I want to be clear, this plan might be too optimistic as well, and we should prepare for the possibility of at least $2.5 million in additional cuts. It's important to note that the board has already voted to use $1.3 million of reserves, anticipating this scenario. And during a recent meeting with city and state officials about the Bridgeport funds, it became clear that the city is having difficulty meeting the requirements to release those funds, which makes our situation even more uncertain. So, in summary, we're not out of the woods yet. We're dealing with some overly optimistic assumptions, and there are still significant hurdles ahead. We need to stay vigilant and adaptive as we navigate these financial challenges. Bridgeport, in particular, faces some significant challenges. We're looking at an increased need of about $37 million to cover our costs, even after adjusting for inflation. And, unfortunately, we're heavily reliant on non-recurring sources of funding to close this year's gap. Now, if the state doesn't step in with support, the cuts for the 2026-2027 school year will likely start where last year's cuts left off. That could mean longer walking distances for students and the elimination of paraprofessionals, which are essential for supporting our students. Even after making these cuts, we'll probably still need to find an additional $30 million in savings. That assumes we get at least $3 million from the city and nothing from state or other sources. This situation underscores the urgent need for investment in education. Our children deserve better. When towns like Greenwich and Westport spend up to $10,000 more per student than districts serving more impoverished communities, it highlights the disparities that directly impact outcomes. And it's important to remember, for the 2026-2027 school year, all districts in impoverished cities may face further cuts unless we find a way to change this trajectory. Our collective goal should be to ensure that every child, regardless of where they live, gets the quality education they deserve. Now, let's take a look at some solutions that can help us address the challenges we've discussed. First, it's important to focus on innovative approaches that leverage technology to improve efficiency and accuracy. For example, implementing advanced data analytics can give us deeper insights and enable better decision-making. Second, fostering collaboration across teams and departments is crucial. When everyone shares information and works toward common goals, solutions become more effective and sustainable. Third, continuous training and development are key. Ensuring that our teams stay updated with the latest skills and knowledge helps us adapt quickly to changing circumstances. Finally, we should also prioritize sustainable practices that not only solve immediate issues, but also support long-term growth and stability. By integrating these strategies, we can turn challenges into opportunities for growth and innovation, aligning with the overall theme of progress and resilience in our organization. The foundation amount, which we assume reflects the cost of educating an average student, has actually stayed the same since 2013. Meanwhile, the cost of educating a child has been steadily increasing every single year. This disconnect means that by not adjusting for inflation, we've been underfunding our schools by hundreds of millions of dollars over time. To address this, immediate action is necessary. First, we need to increase the foundation amount by at least $2,000 per pupil. This simple step can make a significant difference. Additionally, we should add a meaningful weight for special education students, recognizing their unique needs, and also increase the weight for English language learner students. By increasing the foundation amount by that minimum of $2,000, Bridgeport Public Schools, and likely other districts as well, will be able to maintain all current services, and potentially even bring some back that have been cut. Ultimately, this is about fixing the formula. We need to update it to reflect the true costs of education today, ensuring our schools are properly funded to serve all students effectively. But this is unrealistic. How will we pay? That's the crucial question, isn't it? When we talk about implementing new policies or investing in innovations, we often focus on the benefits. But we also have to consider the financial side of things. How do we fund these initiatives without overextending our resources? It's important to think about sustainable financing options, whether that's reallocating budgets, seeking new revenue streams, or exploring partnerships. Ultimately, for any plan to succeed, we need to ensure that the question of payment is addressed clearly and realistically. Otherwise, even the best ideas might remain just plans on paper. Let's talk about ways we can eliminate surpluses that are created when we shortchange our children. First, increasing the foundation amount by $2,000. Now, this would cost us less than 25% of the FY 2025 surplus, so just under $400 million. It's a significant boost that could really help bridge funding gaps. Next, we have the idea of increasing weights for students in poverty and English language learners. This approach primarily benefits towns and cities facing fiscal difficulties, making the funding more equitable. However, I should note that the exact costs are hard to pin down because there are many variables involved. Finally, we can legislate mandated increases to the foundation amount, tying it to a minimum increase aligned with the Consumer Price Index. This would help ensure that funding keeps pace with inflation, preventing shortfalls over time. All of these solutions aim to address the underlying issue of shortchanging our children's education, by making funding more adequate and fair across communities. Just look at how this one change alone could really make a difference for our great city of Bridgeport. By making this adjustment, there's no need to cut essential services, and we might even bring back some that we've lost. Specifically, if we add sped weight to our funding calculations, it could help us recover some of those vital programs. And here's the really encouraging part. By adding just $2,000 to the foundation amount, we could actually reduce the funding inequities by about 1/3. That's a significant step toward fairness and ensuring all our students get the support they need. This ties right into our overall goal of creating a more equitable and sustainable education system for Bridgeport. Small changes like this can have a big impact, and it's important we consider them carefully. So, what about future funding? This is a critical question as we look ahead and plan for the sustainability of our initiatives. Ensuring ongoing support is essential to keep momentum and achieve long-term goals. We need to explore potential sources of funding, whether that's through government grants, private partnerships, or other innovative funding models. It's also important to consider how we can demonstrate the value and impact of our work to attract continued investment. Ultimately, securing future funding ties directly into the overall theme of building a resilient and sustainable framework for our efforts moving forward. Under Dan Malley, the foundation amount increased by $1,658 per pupil. Under Jody Rell, the increase was nearly $4,000 per pupil. It might seem like a big ask to make such a significant increase again, but it's important to remember that it has been done twice before. This shows that such substantial investments in education are possible, especially when there's a strong commitment and a clear plan. Connecting this to our overall theme, it demonstrates that meaningful progress in education funding isn't just a dream. It's achievable with the right leadership and collective effort. And that brings us to the key takeaway from today's presentation. All advocates must speak with one voice and deliver one clear message. We need to fix the formula. That means uniting our efforts and ensuring our advocacy is strong and coordinated. We also have to recognize that we need to expand our advocacy efforts more than ever before. Governor Ed Lamont is unlikely to listen without significant pressure. Right now, he's trying to shift the narrative and take control away from local districts, especially the two largest in Connecticut, instead of properly funding our schools. So I urge all education advocates out there, amplify your voices. Remember, educational equity is a civil right. It's not just about funding, it's about fairness, opportunity, and justice for every child. Join your local NAACP and other advocacy groups, especially those you might not currently be involved with. Share this presentation, share the necessary steps, and empower others to get involved for the battles ahead. Get involved in a march, testify at a budget hearing, contact your state representatives, and encourage your local officials, mayors, and community members to do the same. Every voice counts. And let's not forget, this is an election year for the governor. If he refuses to fund our children's education, we have the power to elect a leader who will. Thank you all for your commitment. My name is Joseph Sokolovic from Bridgeport, Connecticut. You can reach me at 718-650-0718. Let's work together to make a difference.